taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week.
This is Augmented Reality,
presented by the Triple S League.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast, your source for news, leaks, and insights about games in the gaming industry for November 2nd, 2019, the Saturday edition of the show. Welcome, everybody. Lots of activity in the live chat already. That's always exciting to see. My name is Asheninity. I'm here with Cybsidian on this fantastic BlizzCon weekend that I know everybody was super excited for, looking forward to with bated breath. We're going to be diving into everything that's going on with BlizzCon. J. Allen Brack, the president of Blizzard, addressed the Blitzchung controversy, we think. He at no point used the words Blitzchung, China, or Hong Kong, but I think we know what he was talking about. We're going to dissect that a little bit, talk about what announcements they came out with at their opening ceremonies. There was really nothing surprising, was there, Cybsidian? There was just... pretty much everything had been leaked beforehand.
It was a lot of most of the stuff had been leaked beforehand. It was kind of funny. One of the presenters was like, "It's like I wanted to tear my phone in half like 2 days before the event started." And I'm just sitting here going, apparently you guys don't have any security experts that work for you. Anybody who knows how this stuff works. It's like, oh, jeez.
But then if you tear your phone in half, you won't have a phone.
Yeah, then he won't have a phone to play these stupid mobile games. You know what was the most surprising thing? Is that they didn't mention any of the mobile games at all.
I think that, that's...
Like, at all. We know that they were working on another one, and we know that the Diablo Immortal is still supposedly going to release sometime in the future. But they didn't mention a darn thing about any of that. So it's kind of like, okay, interesting.
But they played it super, super safe, though. With good reason.
That's everything that happened that has happened so far at BlizzCon has been playing the super safe angle, and has been, and they're playing up this like, hey guys, we're listening to you, we're hearing you, we're doing what you want, and it's like good, and we can kind of see that. We see that in most especially we see that in WoW and in Diablo. Same place, same connected entity there. But they have this. They have this idea that they're reaching out to their player base, and they're giving their player base what they want. I was watching a couple of these like big streamers, like guys who play WoW like all the time, like Asmongold and some others, and they were all saying the same thing. It's like, oh my god, for this next expansion, it's like they were listening to us. And I'm like, oh gee, I wonder how like when did that happen? At what point did somebody in the studio at Blizzard, and I really wish, BioWare, Bethesda, EA, Activision, I wish all of these people would listen to these people. It's like, go on, listen to the smart streamers, like the streamers who know exactly what the community wants. The people who actually know, like, if it is true that the public does not always know what they want when it comes to video games, they don't always think that they know, like they don't always know what they really want. It's like, it's like, I think I was using this example the other day. It's like, if you create a story that doesn't have any real sense of loss or real sense of like, of cost for the hero or the heroes, heroines, whatever, to complete the thing, or to do the thing. If there's no actual cost that makes sense, right? It's like that is impactful and makes sense and is logical and is like, sorry, there's no other way that this had to happen. This had to happen this one way, period. There's no other choice. If you listen to people who actually understand that in order to have a good story, you need to have a sense of loss. You need to have a sense of progression. You need to have a sense of achieving something versus like, versus like the kids shows where it's like they beat back the baddie all the time at no cost to themselves. Like the really terrible kid shows. You don't remember those kid shows, but you do remember the shows that had meaning. As much as I hated the movie, I still remember Charlotte's Web basically word for word. Even though it's one of the movies that I hate the most, still remember every single plot point because that movie came with cost.
Mm-hmm.
And the story came with cost, and you didn't have that in other kids' books, and those ones I don't remember at all. So
that movie traumatized me as a kid, Charlotte's Web. And what traumatized me about it was not that the spider died. Spoiler alert for like a 3,000-year-old book,
yeah,
and movie. But it wasn't that the spider died. It was that the pig got to live because he was super talented. I don't even remember.
Yeah, but he wasn't talented
at
all.
I was like, what about all the other pigs? I was like, these pigs are sentient, feeling beings, and then most of them get slaughtered for dinner now. Yeah. Anyway, ham is delicious. I'm not. So anyway, we're gonna dive into that. We're also gonna talk about these beautiful male specimens up on the screen that a lot of you have been commenting on in the chat. Henry Cavill as The Witcher. We got a new Witcher trailer for the Netflix series, so we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about Death Stranding. We have a lot more information about that now that the review embargo has lifted, and so reviews have been coming out. A couple other things as well. We're going to start with BlizzCon, but welcome everybody who is listening live and already active in the chat. Please do say hello in the live chat. By the way, we want your thoughts on Death Stranding and on the new Witcher trailer. You can put them in the chat. We might miss them there, but we'll get to them if we can. You can also put them in the content requests channel on our Discord server. And if you're not a member of the Discord server, hit the link below and join up and say hi to us. We'd love to have you as part of the community. But if you put your thoughts on them there, then we are more likely to see them. But we'll also do our best to get all of your thoughts from the chat. Hello, I want to shout out Rubber Kidney this morning. Hello, I don't recognize your username, so welcome. If this is your first time joining the show live or your first time talking in the chat, welcome. We love seeing new people joining in. All right, so let's get on with BlizzCon. Let's talk about J. Allen Brack first, I guess, hey? So here is a picture of J. Allen Brack giving an apology / addressing the Blitzchung controversy at the opening ceremonies of BlizzCon yesterday. Now, no, this picture has not been photoshopped. Somehow he looks like he's a Photoshop cutout, even though he's not in this picture. That is actually the background he was standing in front of. Just want to point that out. Somehow he looks like a terrible Photoshop. And that's somehow metaphorical for what we're going to be hearing from him. So I have a cut down version of his statement. It's about 1.5 minutes long. We're going to play it for you. Now, his full statement was over 3 minutes. I cut out some of the applause. I cut out some of the empty pauses and a few of the things he said that were basically like, I tried to keep the entire context in, but I had to cut it down for time because I didn't want to play the whole 3+ minute cut. But anyway, I'm just going to play the statement and then we're going to address it a little bit. And then we'll get on to what else came out of BlizzCon. But here is J. Allen Brack, the president of Blizzard, addressing the Blitzchung controversy, the Free Hong Kong controversy at the Hearthstone tournament a few weeks ago.
Before we start the opening ceremony, I want to say a few words. Blizzard had the opportunity to bring the world together in a tough Hearthstone esports moment about a month ago. And we did not. We moved too quickly in our decision-making, and then, to make matters worse, we were too slow to talk with all of you. When I think about what I'm most unhappy about, there's really two things. The first one is we didn't live up to the high standards that we really set for ourselves. And the second is we failed in our purpose. And for that, I am sorry, and I accept accountability. So what exactly is our purpose? BlizzCon is demonstrating it even as we speak. We aspire to bring the world together in epic entertainment. And I truly believe in the positive power of video games. When we get it right, we create a common ground where the community comes together. As an example, BlizzCon has people from 59 countries all around the world here at the show today. And that is the positive power of video games, to transcend divisions that surround us in so many of our places today. We will do better going forward. As you walk around this weekend, I hope it's clear how committed we are to everyone's right to express themselves in all kinds of ways, in all kinds of places. I've actually seen and heard many of you expressing yourself this morning.
All right, so there's the essence of his statement. A few bits of it that really don't change the meaning of what he was saying were clipped out there. Of course, you can find the entire statement in a lot of places online. But I was watching Yang Yea's live reaction to this, and one of the things he said was, when J. Allen Brack said, we are dedicated to letting you express yourselves, and we hope you can see that. Young's first question was, is that why you disabled the live chat? Good question. Now, I didn't watch the presentation live. I can't confirm for myself that the live chat was disabled. Perhaps
it was on a few places, yeah.
Yeah, so, but that's really interesting, and that's really kind of emblematic of all of this. The hypocrisy and the lies. That's what everybody's upset about, J. Allen Brack, and you did not address that one bit.
And what I think we can reap from this is that it's either one of two things. Either Jay and pretty much the majority of Blizzard is now completely sold out to the idea that, look, China is, number two. We're not going to do anything to piss them off. We're just going to supplicate and dodge the issues in the rest of the world, and doesn't matter what we do, what we say. We'll just kind of we'll just deal with it. We'll just cover it up and deal with it at some point, in some way, in some fashion. That's just how we're going to approach this. It's kind of sad to see a company fall this far, if that's the case. The other case, which unfortunately isn't much better, but is at least gives an ounce of hope, is that this isn't what Blizzard wants to do. It's never what they wanted to do. But the person pulling the strings, which is Bobby Kotick from Activision, and the Activision board, has so infiltrated and so corrupted Blizzard that they are incapable of doing anything about this, period.
That's a possibility.
Of being open, honest, clear, direct, communicative, and that there's nothing to be done to save Blizzard unless they were to leave Activision, which at this point is an impossibility because they have so infiltrated and taken over the company. And I got to say that I find this most likely to be true, because there are so many people that have left Blizzard because there's no hope for saving the thing that was at one point really precious to them. And that's just an unfortunate reality in which we live, especially with this. So I think that's probably most likely what's happening, is that Activision just basically pulls the strings of everything now. I believe that one of the reasons why there was such a delay originally is because the Blizzard people went to the Activision people and said, look, we don't agree with this. We side with Hong Kong. This is crazy. We want to say something. We're getting hammered here. And the reaction was, excuse me, do you know how much of the bottom line is China sales, and how much of the future potential bottom line is future sales? It's like I had somebody explain it to me like this. It's like, if you can get in now and cement yourself as one of the more permanent companies in China, you're potentially, you're potentially going to make, literally tens of billions of dollars in the future. And that if you get banned in China, that you're potentially just throwing those, 40, 50 billion dollars down the drain. And this is why so many companies think this, is a good thing to just kowtow to this. And this is the only way that dictatorships last. Like, it really is one of the only ways that dictatorships last, is by other people propping them up. And say what you want about any of the systems, and I know some people, they want to argue on this, but in a healthy democracy, you have the pendulum swing, and you have people that have term limits, right? And yes, it's not a perfect system by far. It's a pretty crap system overall, but my God, it's better than every other system out there. Literally, it's better than any other system by far, because at least you have a pendulum swing. At least you have the ability to vote people out, and at least you have term limits. So that if it is just naturally terrible, eventually it can swing the other way.
Well,
and
there's
of
that.
course,
And then
yeah.
there's also, the fact that we can see a specific example in the world
Mm-hmm.
today about people's freedoms and human rights being suppressed, and somebody chose to speak up about that. Now, again, I've heard a lot of people expressing, if they just across the board banned any political messaging, and
But they can't. Yeah, but they can't do that, because as he later came out, with a pin for another movement, right?
he
Comes out with
didn't
this.
even come out later. He's wearing it in this picture
Oh, okay.
that I've got on the screen. If you look at his right hand lapel.
Okay. There. The coloring was a little off, so yeah, there. Okay, yeah, I see it. So he's got this one thing on, and that's great and all, but that same thing is also banned in many, many, many countries.
Yeah.
So why is this thing okay to talk about? Why is these persecution things okay to talk about, but not the other things?
Yeah, don't pretend that you're supporting human rights on the one hand. It struck me as so hypocritical that he wore this pin.
Yeah. It seems it is so very hypocritical, because there's a bunch of countries where it's like, sorry, if you support that particular movement, you're not allowed to do business here. And a lot of companies go, well, let's look at this here. So if we were to come out and say, ban all political support of this one particular topic, it would look pretty bad for us in North America. And we might end up getting the boot from a lot of these places. However, the people that we're selling this to aren't really that big. They've only got 5 million people or so. So yeah, screw them. Yeah, screw them. Okay, yeah, good business decision. Good business decision.
People in the live chat are having trouble seeing what it is that's on there. It is the Blizzard logo colored in the Pride rainbow colors, is what it is. Now, let's just for a second, let's not dive too far down this rabbit hole, but
no.
China's record with LGBT rights, not
very good.
Not good.
Not very good. And it is one of the few things that they're actually okay with other countries doing. China is actually very supportive of other countries supporting this movement.
Well, let's not go down that rabbit trail. Point is that they're not they're not in support of this, particular movement for themselves. They don't support it in their own country. So we've got J. Allen Brack wearing this particular logo, trying to show that, I support human rights, but then when someone speaks up against a brazen violation of human rights, Blizzard Well, I mean, we've discussed the Blitzchung situation.
Yeah,
We
no,
won't
it's-
recap everything, but they brought the hammer down on him. But then let's look at his apology here. What did he apologize for? Reacting too fast and then not responding fast enough. That's all. There's no retraction. There was no statement about, oh, we did the wrong thing. Nothing. It was empty words, empty corpo speak. So that's all it is.
So anyways, it was generally disappointing. I think we can say for sure that that basically the company is now definitely in the back pocket of China, and they're most certainly being controlled by Activision. My point, and many other people were saying basically, excuse me, if this is an apology, where is the retraction? Where is the backup? Where are you, walking back what you did, walking back what you said, walking back the punishments? Where is this? Why are you not willing to, back up your words with an actual statement on this? So, yeah, it's it's really disappointing still.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Lots of good comments on this in the chat.
Oh, James Fullerton, you're absolutely 100% correct. There were some cheers, and you got to remember most of those are Blizzard employees and diehard fans. And I mean, I've seen a lot of these diehard fans on forums and stuff like that. Just watching some of the reactions back and forth, it's like somebody's like, somebody's like, you guys need to stop bothering Blizzard because they make good games, and it's like okay, sure, most of their games have been crap lately, but okay. It's like, no, they haven't. They've all been perfect. They're all perfect. It's like, oh, okay, I see. You're a blind, crazy person. It's like, well, what do you feel about these, and then they put, put out some evidence or something like that of what's actually going on, and like what's happening to the Uyghurs and the other stuff that's going on, the other human rights abuses, the Hong Kong protesters, and like their response is like, screw them all, I don't care. It's like, oh, okay, all right. So yeah, you're part of the problem there. So it's just disappointing to see.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of protests, there have been some outside of BlizzCon. There were people chanting things, of course, but there was a group of people giving out free T-shirts, encouraging people to wear them inside of BlizzCon. So that was interesting.
Yeah, so Blizzard is basically saying, okay, for anybody who's wearing a politically, motivated T-shirt or politically motivated outfit, lots of Winnie the Poohs there, that they're not kicking anybody out for wearing that stuff. However, I've been watching some of the footage, and it's very clear that if you're wearing any of that kind of stuff and you just happen to walk into frame of one of the cameras, they are immediately cutting that feed and going to a different camera. That any interviewer who's doing an interview or something like that is going to be told that, should somebody walk past, not to film that, wearing some of the stuff, not to film them directly. If they're really far away, then it's fine, it doesn't matter. But if it's right there, then no. So yeah, overall, I gotta say, really disappointed in Blizzard. Really disappointed in this response. I feel that they're kind of trading their soul away a little bit here, and yeah, that kind of sucks. So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, so that's the meat on that. So
I'm just bringing in an image here. Terror K just posted in our Discord, taking advantage of that nice, clean, solid colored background in the J. Allen Brack image.
Yeah, that was kind of a dumb idea.
So yes, that's going to be it's definitely ripe for people to make Photoshop edits. And here's Terror K's on your screen right now. Thanks for that. very much. Terakay's actually got quite an artistic streak and a good sense of humor. Does cartoons and stuff, so really appreciate that. We love seeing the stuff you guys create as well.
I'd love, and I'm sure somebody will create a video of him doing the apology with, videos of all of the atrocities that China's committing in the background.
that you could very easily do that with it's somebody didn't think that one through. Oh, let's put a nice solid blue background behind him while he's giving this message. He already looks like he's photoshopped onto it anyway. And his hair is so nice and smooth that there's going to be very little issue with it's not green screening, but chroma keying there. So all right, so I'm just going to bring it back to that's the intro. There we go. Bring it back to some much handsomer gentlemen on your screens here, and let's talk a little bit about what was announced at BlizzCon. Again, nothing surprising really so far.
It is surprising in a few ways. So, okay, first of all, I want to answer James' question about the brain drain at the company. Brain drains happen anytime you have a stifling work environment. If you have to go through red tape upon red tape upon red tape in order to create something or do something that is intelligent, smart, fast, improves the product or the thing that you are working on. If you have to cut through miles of red tape, you're probably just going to take your good ideas and leave, especially if you are working on the higher rung of a ladder. And most people who are in positions where they are in team leads or have had many years of experience at Blizzard, most of those people would qualify under that, that brainiac position. And so their reaction to the stuff is a justifiable one, in which they just simply walk away and go get a job at a company that doesn't offer as much limitations. We see this especially happening at BioWare right now. It's the same thing. Because of all the red tape that EA does, because of all the constant red tape that EA does, basically they end up deciding that, hey, you know what? We're just gonna move to a different company because there's nothing for us here. Which again, this story kind of flew under the radar. The current head, Chad Robinson, over at BioWare, who was in charge of live services and who was head manning the current Anthem project, also quit. Also is moving to a new company. Why? Because it's stifling and choking, and when you're like, all right, spend the next 5 years working on this disaster of a project, you're kind of like, you know what? I think I want to go work at a different company. Because when the company decides that, hey, all we think you're good for is to take this dying product and to prop it up somehow, or to use it as we've talked about on the show, to use it as a way to experiment on what kind of live service stuff and what kind of gimmicks work best on the population playing our game. It's like, when that's your day to day, it's time to move. It's time to leave the company, and this is where you get the brain drain effect from. This is why so many people leave these companies when they start doing this, because it's at this point it's just useless. It's there is no point to this anymore. It's time to move on. And yeah, that can be brutal. It can be really, 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 really brutal. So
there's another picture that got posted in our memes channel of picture from BlizzCon with somebody sitting in the audience in a gigantic full Winnie the Pooh costume.
Yeah, there's one guy there who's like probably 6'3", I'd say. He's built like a train, and he's in a Winnie the Pooh costume, and it's like, wow. I retweeted the picture a couple times, I think, yesterday, because it was like, oh my, wow, that is one very hardcore young fellow there. So
And the thing is, Blizzard they are powerless. Like they would be absolutely shooting themselves in the foot if they actually did anything about it. So,
oh yeah, no,
the
well,
people who are protesting,
that's part of the reason why people are there. Now, the other thing that's kind of interesting is they have a lot of security there. Like, they have about 10 times the amount of security there waiting at the site than they have ever had before. Just let that sink in. California, there's a bunch of, just had some earthquakes. There's a whole bunch of fires raging. There's homeless problems that are, you know, going through the roof, and they've employed the use of I've heard within the realm of like 300 police officers to stand by as the convention rolls on.
yeah,
What
well,
what do you think is going to happen? Why do you need 300 police officers in SWAT gear? Like, really? Really? Now, of course, because this is, been escalated so much, maybe there's somebody who's been making some threats and stuff like that online, and don't ever do that. They're just really, 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 like it's like going after somebody who you don't like because of political beliefs. It's like all you're going to do is make them a martyr. If you can't beat them on the merit of the discussion, don't whatever you do, don't bully them, because it's just ugh.
all right. Well, let's.
Is there a
I
sort?
mean, it's too.
Ali, I do not have an official source for that I can mention, but you can also find that there's some people who have been managed to take some pictures of a number of vehicles and a large amount of these people. So there's some info out there that you can find on Twitter and whatnot, as far as like the source as to how many officers I know directly. That's inside baseball. So yeah, yeah, James. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. I made a crass joke about that yesterday on Twitter, pointing that out. It's like, well, maybe they're just here to employ those CP tactics that are so beloved by that state. Um, yeah, but
All right.
anyway,
Let's get on to the actual gaming stuff. So, I mean, not a ton of. You said it was
so yeah,
not
okay.
surprising,
So
but also
let's
a little surprising.
So
What they
not
announced.
surprising in the sense of like they really tried to go back to the basics with the Diablo thing here. Um, they had been toying with different ideas and different concepts, and the guy who stepped out on stage, he literally stepped out on stage, the lead on this guy for this project, and he literally said, and I forgot everything I was supposed to talk about. So then he just rambled. So it's like, okay. So they took it back to basics, which again, this is not surprising as far as an intelligent move. Going back to basics for this particular game is like, I mean, it's just like, why would you do anything else? What, like, seriously, why would you do anything else for this particular genre? You really think you're going to turn this into a G-rated film for all the 8 and 9 year olds to play? Are you kidding me? Like, good lord, that's what Overwatch is for. Stop trying to do this with this particular you know genre of dark, gothic gore, blood, and hell. It's like, you can't clean that up, keep it to its original concept, and just run with that. So there was some changes that you could tell. They're like, we've added jumping, and it's like, oh, okay, cool, you've added jumping. Um, Quick question: is that all you've added? So, and this is where we go. What was not surprising is, or kind of another aspect of what was not surprising, is that they're not really innovating too much on this. Like, sure, they've got mounts now, they've got a couple other things. The only reason why you add mounts into games like this is so that you can sell mounts to people via microtransactions. Sorry, that's probably 100% going to happen. I really, really believe that that's the primary reason. If there's not a mount store that has like probably $300 worth of mounts in it in Diablo 4 within a year, I'll be extremely shocked. I'll be extremely shocked. So there's that. There's a lot of other things that they're adding. But if you are more familiar with other games within this genre, you know that there's been just a ton of new content and new ways to look at stuff and new things going on. Um, that honestly, it's like you know these guys are embracing stuff from Path of Exile, which has been pointed out in the chat. They're embracing stuff from Path of Exile. Great. Um, when Path of Exile is not a new game. That game's been around for a while. There's another couple of games, and I'm trying to find the name of one of them right now because I keep forgetting what the darn name is called. Lost Ark. So Lost Ark is coming out. It's coming out very soon. It's coming out. It's going to be out in Asia first, and then it's going to pop over to North America at some point, probably most likely. And everything I've heard from everybody who's playing that game is that this is so far past what Diablo 3 had in every way, shape, and form that is absolutely there is no comparison at all. This game has taken the concept of an isometric Avenger and has just completely run away with it in directions that most companies can't even dream of catching up with. Now, I've got to say that after looking at the combat and looking at Diablo, the only thing that Diablo has going for it is the aesthetic. That is the only thing that it has going for it right now. The aesthetic and kind of the callback to like the more traditional, like, dark, vibe and whatnot. Lost Ark is, as far as like the mechanics, as far as like their questing system. So in Lost Ark, you can like sneak around. And in order to pick up some quests, you sneak around the village and you eavesdrop on people. If you get too close to people, or if you're spotted, they won't talk about, oh, dude, there's a super secret place that we're going that has all this fucking gold and stuff. Mountains of bucking gold. I don't know what a bucking gold is, but it's a buck that's covered in gold or something like that. And like that. But they're trying to get there and they're trying to do this, and so they're whispering quietly. That's how you pick up some quests there. Like the fact that that's a thing, and that they have this really cool system where you pick up this kind of questing stuff and radiant stuff just really super silently is amazing. And what does Diablo have? Well, they have mounts now. Well, they got mounts now, so
nothing
yay,
really
cool.
innovative. Which is unfortunate. I think they're really playing it safe after the debacle last year with Diablo.
Yeah. Which is why they have scaled this back to go back to their roots, really. So
right, but you can still innovate in in quality ways without like you can innovate on gameplay. You could add in certain methods of playing the game, like you just said, like picking up quests stealthily, eavesdropping on people, that kind of a thing. You could add those things in, I think, very safely without taking away from the core of what the game is. Turning it into an FPS or an over-the-shoulder shooter, like that's not. I mean, I guess you could call that innovative, but it would have certainly been a change.
It would have certainly been a change.
That would be maybe too much for the core audience. Like I can see why they wouldn't want to go that way. But, keeping it in the isometric format, but just like taking it in new directions while still keeping to the core of what people liked about it before.
Yeah.
You can do that, but it seems like perhaps they're not. Perhaps they're just playing it really, 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 really safe.
And now they're introducing Lilith, which is a cornerstone character within the series. She's actually like kind of basically the mother of pretty much everybody on in Sanctuary. Not directly, but she was the original, like, one of two pairings that started to create the denizens of the world. So the Nilhines, the basically the humans in the story. So that, again, interesting. I hope they do that right. I hope that they just don't make her some crazy person just cuz. Um, it seems kind of weird. So at any rate, um, it looks decent. Like I said, for the aesthetic alone that they've brought this back, that'll keep a lot of fans around, because sometimes you just want the aesthetic, right? Sometimes you just want the art style, the visceral, whatever. Will this include uh uh how do you say how do you will this include topless people of the female variety like the first two games did? I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be a thing. So,
Well,
yeah, we'll see. We'll see
depends on
how
if they
much
want to
they've gone
release it
back
in
to.
China or not.
Yeah.
All right. So Diablo 4, return to the roots, but nothing terribly innovative that we've seen thus far. Then we had Overwatch 2 announced, which is apparently it was something that was really interesting about this Overwatch 2. Now they're adding in a PvE mode, but apparently there's going to be some overlap between Overwatch 2 and the original Overwatch, so that people in Overwatch 2 can play with people in Overwatch 1. Not entirely sure how that works, but what were your thoughts on the Overwatch 2 announcement?
So, they really should just make Overwatch movies. Like, honestly, it's like it's such a good animation system. But the storyline is just, again, like, the main criticism of Overwatch 1 is that you have all these people who are on this Overwatch team, and all they're doing is running around killing each other and swapping teams at random to, again, kill each other, and not and but they're doing it for saving the world, and people need Overwatch. People you people need to believe in Overwatch again. So the only way that this is going to happen is if we get enough people together to kill each other in a field, and then that'll work, and that'll help everything, because, again, people need to watch us as we kill each other in pointless and ridiculous circular matches. The logic of the game just never ever sit well with basically anybody. It's like trying to get a hardcore fan to, like, defend them was laughable at best. It's just like, okay, so why are they killing each other? Well, because they have to do it, because the Talon company and just some other stuff going on that we don't know about, and it's like, oh, okay, sure. Why do they have costumes? It's for looks and style. Why does anybody have a costume? They're superheroes. They have costumes all the time. It's like, good lord.
More contrived than Infinity War. No, not Infinity War.
It's
Civil War. Captain American Civil War.
it's so
Let's find
contrived.
an
And
excuse to have Iron Man fight Captain America. Yeah.
yeah. So the the circular logic on this is dumb. Is really, really dumb. And I really did not enjoy. I've never enjoyed the Overwatch's story as far as the logic goes. Emotionally, it's a great. Like, the cinematics are great to watch. It's like, oh wow, such cool characters. What kind of story do they have? Nothing. Oh, well, what kind of, like, cool adventures can you get up to with them? You don't play adventures. You just kill each other. Like, oh, okay, well, all right. So now they've supposedly fixed that by creating Overwatch 2, which is basically just an upgrade to Overwatch 1, in which you play the same missions, but now there's also PvE missions, which all take place in the same maps. There's like 5 maps, and you just play in those 5 maps, and you just, it's very small arenas, and you just fight waves of things. So it's a horde mode. So they've introduced a horde mode. But there's leveling, but the leveling's not, the leveling only affects like, the PvE stuff and the horde mode stuff. It's like,
Weird. Okay.
it's like great cinematic, almost teared up. It was amazing. It was really cool. It was, kind of predictable, but it was really cool, and it was really awesome. And I'm sure that most of my like nieces and nephews and any children watching would just be so happy to watch that as a movie, because it's so cool. Because it's so cool, and the characters are so friendly. But again, there's no depth to the story in the gameplay. The gameplay is great, like the shooting mechanics and all that's all fine, but it's like there's just nothing there, and there's never been anything there other than just this weird like this weird PvP thing. So yeah, I'm still on the fence. I like, it's still bizarre. They did come out and they did refute the fact that no, everybody gets all of the progress that they made in the previous game translates over to the first game, or to the next game. Now, this is really interesting, because the rumor is that you were not going to get any of that stuff translated over from the first game to the second game, and you'd have to reopen a lot of that stuff to get access to those cosmetics again. Now, I'm going to give you their argument. Then I'm going to give you the argument that was going to be there for them not doing that. So for them, making it so that everybody had to progress to get that stuff again. The argument was, look, guys, we would never want to like reset your progress and reset your collections. That's just really rude of us. So that was their argument for that. The counter argument for the other position, which I know they drafted, was, look, guys, we want to make sure that everybody gets an equal chance. Everybody's equal. Nobody gets the advantage of anything else. And this is why, equality. We love equality. And, you're still always going to have those things over on the first Overwatch. But on the second Overwatch, it's because it's equality, and it's because it's fair. We want to make this fair. So everybody starts with the same stuff. This is what they tell us every time that they do a hard reset in any of their other games. So why wouldn't it matter here? They couldn't get away with it. That's what happened here. They couldn't get away with being that greedy. And as I understand, it was a pretty close call. And there were people who were very, very upset over at Activision that they were not going to be able to recharge everybody for trying to get the same access to all of the same cosmetics that they got in the first game. And again, this isn't really a new game. This is the difference between Fortnite season, like Fortnite 1 and Fortnite 2. It's like the map is just completely new, and there's a whole bunch of new stuff, and there's swimming and other things that you couldn't do before, and that's what's there now. None of that stuff was there in the last one, but now so that's why it's like now it's Fortnite 2 instead of like Fortnite 1, but it's only map 2, it's year 2 or whatever they want to call it, whatever crazy stuff that they want to say. So yeah, they basically looked at this and said, okay, all right, well, we can't, if we do this, if we make everybody have to rebuy all of their cosmetics, people are going to be peeved. Well, then the next position from Activision was, well, okay, give them a selection of stuff, but we really need them to open those loot boxes all again. Because there's still loot boxes. Yes, there's still loot boxes. So, it's just weird. So, all right. So moving on from that, I think Overwatch it'll have a small resurgence from this, but the game and the general product is still intrinsically flawed because there's not very much meaningful actual story. There's just a bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense. And I mean, they might find success with that, continued success with that. I don't know. Hearthstone was kind of meh as far as I understand. Most everybody was like, Hearthstone. Like, look, card games are basically over now. Um, it's really on the downward trend. I don't know why these companies keep trying to bring it back. I know why they keep trying to bring it back, because it's such an easy money maker. It makes so much money, and it's so easy for them to make so much money from it. People in card games will the average like top tier player spends like 5 grand, 5 grand on Overwatch, on Hearthstone card decks. 5 grand, like, good lord. So I understand why they think it's a good thing. I understand why they really, really, really love it. I understand why the companies just, they're chasing this unicorn to the absolute end of the rainbow. I'm trying to come up with nonsensical things, but it's just horrendous. So now we get to WoW. So WoW was kind of one of the first things that they brought up, and again, this boils back down to what I was saying at the opening. It's like Asmongold, a lot of people who critique the game intelligently. They understand the players, and they understand the game, and they understand what needs to be done to keep people, playing the game. And all of them are really happy, because this is basically everything that they've been asking for, and a bunch of this really dumb BS has been removed. Thank goodness. And there's now an actual movement, and kind of actually bringing the game back down to more of the vanilla experience, which is great. It's like, gee, you mean the original thing that made the game what it was, you're you're sticking with that content, and you're making that content work. Congratulations. Slow clap. Like, oh my god, I can't believe that you guys were actually that intelligent enough to actually decide, hey guys, you know what we should do here? We should probably, I don't know, do what made the game great. So yeah, so that's a positive thing. They're going into the Shadowlands, so that leak was correct. Shadowlands is not an island on a continent on Azeroth. It is otherworldly. So you probably seen the screenshot of the castle coming out of the sky, the upside down castle thing coming out of the sky. That's cool. There's a lot of lore. They seem to be handling it kind of good. I call BS on the whole Lich King versus. So here's the story, right? So Lich King's there, his big bad guy, and he's so powerful that it takes the combined armies of everybody to fight against him. And Sylvanas, who I know you don't know who that is, she's like this, she's got the hate on for the Lich King, because he turned her into a banshee, and she's really peeved about it, and it's not cool, and there was no consent and all this kind of stuff, and it was just bad, bad, bad. And so she goes on this mission to like try and kill the Lich King, and she basically gets her ass like handed to her, and has to run away. And then it takes the combined forces of all of the greatest heroes on Azeroth, plus Fordring, plus all these other people, to bring down the Lich King, and they barely managed to do it. They barely managed to do it. The light, like the literal, like, superpower of God has to intervene and save everybody, and then kick his butt, right? So then the new Lich King is chosen, and he's given all this crazy power, and he's like, I will be a jailer and all this kind of stuff. And then he's sitting on this throne, and then Sylvanas shows up, a few years later, and absolutely kicks his butt. He doesn't land a single shot on her at all. It's like, gee, what happened? Well, apparently he stopped leveling when everybody else continued to level. So now he's stuck at level 80, and she was like level 120, or 130 now at this point. So, that's apparently what happened there. And that completely makes sense for, logic and lore reasons. And yeah, that's just what happened there, apparently. So yeah, other than that one thing, I mean, it was really, again, really cool cinematic, made no logical sense whatsoever. Oh, but she's got this new purple power. Oh, cool purple power. You know what? I've tried drinking purple power. It doesn't make me that ripped. It just doesn't work. So yeah. So that's weird. And I think this is generally, I think this will create a good growth opportunity for WoW in the future. Um, you know, tons of new customization, tons of new character model updates and other kind of stuff. So it's not the same old game as far as that goes, but it is looking better and better every year. So give it that. So yeah, and I don't know, maybe if they apologize to Blitzchung and reverse the ban, I might be tempted to play it again someday. But yeah, I know, Coco. I know I'm overreacting. Everybody, and that's why I said he's level 80, right? Because that's the meme. It's a meme that the reason why he couldn't beat her is because he's still level 80 and she's at 120 or 130. So clearly super powered. If they had just waited an expansion or two, they could have come back and fought the Lich King, and a party of 4 people could have taken him out. So yes, obviously it's a joke, and obviously it's a meme, and obviously whatever. But I still think it's dumb.
All right.
I'm not losing sleep over it. I just think it's dumb. So, anyways,
I'll
so
smile and nod and pretend I know what you're talking about.
There is a ton of stuff going on at BlizzCon still. We'll keep you updated on what's changing. There has been several larger protests. There has been people chanting stuff. There has been stuff going on. I can tell you that there's a lot of employees who are they've been dreading this. They've been really tired, really exhausted. They're 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 losing their mind, right? um and I also know that there's a couple of them who have been personally accosted because of accosted verbally, not physically, as to why they're continue to work for a company that's just a big pile of poo. Um and some people, they feel shame. They go, well, I don't agree with this either, and it sucks. And then there's other people who've handled it really poorly, going, you're not perfect either. It's like,
That's that's not going to get you very far. When you say a pile of
so again, don't go after people personally. It's just not healthy. It's just not going to work. And it turns them into the victim, which is it's kind of the only defense that they can get when they are an actual POS. So
right,
yeah.
exactly. Was that a pile of Winnie the Pooh? Is that what you were talking about?
Big pile of Winnie the Pooh.
All right.
This is absolutely hilarious, and I really find this like really genuinely entertaining as far as what's going on there and what's happening with everything. It's hilarious. It's really
All right.
freaking
We've got to
hilarious.
move on, though. You are listening.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
You are listening to the Augmented Reality Podcast. We love seeing you very active in the live chat. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we welcome you to join our Discord community. You can find the link in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and other Triple S fans about all the things we love to talk about and stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Click the link below to join. And be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. We're going to get on to our Witcher and Death Stranding topics. Can't believe we spent an hour on Blizzard, but that's how it goes sometimes. Couple minor news stories to bring up. Bethesda has had a little legal dust up in Australia because apparently that they were refusing refunds for people who wanted to get their game refunded of Fallout 76 because it was completely broken, and they were refusing the refunds. Apparently, it turns out that was illegal there. So Bethesda misled people about their consumer rights. That's the complaint. So that's interesting. Trauma Sentry 77 on our Discord server asked if we could talk about Sonic and how under the radar it's flying with all its bugs and boring linear experience of the podcast. And Trauma Sentry posted a a video of a fan-made Sonic game that looks really cool. I watched a little bit of it. We don't have much to say about that, but I mean, like, it's not our, it's not our normal sphere of games that we talk about. I haven't played much of, any recent Sonic games, but I have heard that that a lot of the recent titles have been very underwhelming. But on the topic of Sonic the Hedgehog, some images of Sonic's new redesign for the movie have leaked, and it looks very promising. His new design looks much, much better. All right, and then one final thing here. So in TM Blade asked, any chance there will be any reviews for Need for Speed Heat? Again, not typically in the sphere of things that we directly play and cover, but I mean, if there's demand for that, let us know. I'm not opposed to trying out a good racing game.
It's been a while since I played a really good racing game.
Yeah.
My favorite is probably Pod. Remember Pod?
That's an old one. Wow, that's old.
It had tech though. You could race your own Ghost. This was not something that any of the racing games had at the time. And even now, it's something that took, it took almost a decade for other games to start using it commonly. So, which is just, again, really weird that there's some games that just have amazing tech, super early in development. And it was also one of these games that didn't, there was no real sense of gravity in which, like, you were racing along the racetrack, but the racetrack would do massive loops, turns, pure drops, and again, you would always be just driving on the surface. It didn't matter if that surface was pointed to the center of the planet or straight out from it, sideways or whatever. It's like you were in this amazingly big, deep world. It also had some pretty cool advanced graphical settings in which it changed out the models at different distances, which was a pretty sly way of increasing FPS and making the game function and play better and faster. Yeah, overall, great game. Really, 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 really loved it. High Octane, another one that was one of my personal favorites. It was like really, really early racer hovercrafts. It had rockets, missiles, machine guns, all that kind of stuff. Was really cool and was really fun. I really enjoyed that one too. So yeah, no, I like a good racing game, but yeah, there's so few of them that really catch my interest, and yeah, so it's just a matter of it's like such limited time, so we have to be really careful.
Yeah, unfortunately, but I mean, like I said, if there's demand for any particular thing, we would really love to, we want to give you what you want on our channel as far as content. Need for Speed. I did used to enjoy playing Need for Speed quite a bit, and I will never forget playing against my roommate who was pretty good at the game, but he never slept. Like, he would stay up for days at a time. So I was racing against him one day, and we're like doing one of those matches where you do multiple races, and it's like getting near the end, and so I take off from the starting line, and he just sits there, and I look over, and he's like head slung back, fast asleep on the couch beside me. I'm like, all right, sucker, I'm winning this one. All right, so let's talk about The Witcher first, and then we'll get on to Death Stranding. So the new trailer, like a full trailer for The Witcher Netflix series, came out very, very recently. You see a picture of Geralt there on your screen if you're watching on YouTube. And so I wanted your thoughts about it. So if you want to put your thoughts about it in the chat now, I'll try and collect as many of those as I can. As for me, I thought it looked pretty good. It made me really want to watch the show. And actually, it's one I'm hoping I'm going to watch the first episode with my wife, and hopefully she'll get into it as well. And maybe it's something we can. I've been looking for a show we could enjoy together, and we used to really. We watched the entire series of Angel when we were dating, so we're kind of, she likes those kind of monster type shows. So she might really like this one. So I'm hoping that's a show we can enjoy together. Zrani on our Discord server says the Netflix Witcher trailer was amazing, much better than the teaser. It really sold it this time. I agree with that.
Yeah.
They really did sell it this time. There's it. There's some talk about. There's been a bunch of talk in our Discord server about how Geralt. I mean, they've got Henry Cavill, in this role. Geralt looks really young. He's really buff, which apparently he was not. He's not described in the books as a pretty boy. Somebody put it. So, yeah, it looks like that. They may have deviated from the source material to get a little sex appeal in there. But I don't know, having not read the books myself, I don't know. It looks really good. It is kind of weird to see a really young looking Geralt, having played the games, but I think I don't know. I'm really looking forward to checking it out. What were your thoughts, Saib?
Overall, I think it's finally like caught up and is finally working. I think that they've been cognizant to bring as much of the books and the game lore in at the same time, keeping things as close to and as balanced as they could. I think they were at times tempted to start doing things that were their own interpretation. I'm doing air quotes, like that absolute idiot who did the I think it was one of the Batman movies many years ago. Not the Christopher Nolan ones, but before that, where he brushed off a famous script of the graphic one of the graphic novels and of the general like gist of the comics and whatnot, and said, "Excuse me, I'm doing my own vision. I don't need material or source material. I'm my own creative person." It's like, wow, then create your own thing, dude. Create your own thing, right? Start from scratch. Don't take something else and then add your own quote unquote vision to it. And this is a big problem with directors and people who take themselves way too freaking seriously. They will constantly try to pull some kind of rabbit out of a hat by saying, "Hey, look at this. I'm altering the script because I think it makes the story more interesting." It's like, or you could just stick to the script and do a good job, like whatever. And I think that has been lessened here. I think that originally it was probably more likely to have happened. And I mean, if it gets a second season, it's still probable that it might continue to happen in the future, right? But overall, I think what they've done here is they've done a decent job, and people should generally reward people who try to do decent jobs and that stick to the spirit and the soul of what they're going for. So I think overall I'm pretty happy with the direction of the game, the direction of the series, in that it's kind of borrowing enough stuff from both the games and sticking to the books as much as they can to create something that feels a lot better. And I think we can give this a try. And I think that it will do decently well. I hope that they don't screw with anything, and I hope that they don't forget that. I hope that they, put some effort into this thing continually and try to make it as best as they can. So yeah, overall though, looks good, and maybe not perfect, but I don't think you need perfection in this. And I think at this point, I think Henry Cavill actually passes off as a pretty good Geralt.
Yeah.
Of course, everybody freaked out in the early stuff when they were doing like really early promo stuff and really, 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 really early stuff, it's like obviously they weren't there yet, right? And
Oh yeah, like he looks. You look at him in this picture here compared to the first screen test we saw.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
He looked like Legolas there. Now he looks like
yeah,
more badass Legolas. So they've come a long way. But yeah, the armor looks awesome. Even just in this
yeah.
picture here, like
Big improvement in most of the armor. There's still some people who are saying some of the armor for the bad guys is kind of wonky,
the
and I would
Nilfgaardian
agree with
armor they
that.
were saying, like was it
Yeah,
the Nilfgaardian armor
I can,
was.
yeah, I can kind of agree with that, but in the sense of people wanting that really rich, really rich, really artistic armor that every person had, it's like they really can't do that. Like, I mean, they can try, but it's like if it was poorly done, it would be noticeable. So I kind of figured that armor would be poorly done until they were able to secure at least a good first season. Then I think it'll get a little bit better. But for and I mean, yeah, I'm in an agreement. It's bad, right? Obviously, I'm in an agreement that it's bad. But because like it's not the main armor, right? The main armor for most everybody in the show looks pretty decent, looks really good, but the grunts, the people that are on screen for 5 seconds because they're either getting killed or they're in a passing shot, obviously can't be as perfect as what we had in Game of Thrones. But that's because Game of Thrones poured a truck ton of money into that, whereas these guys are working with like probably 1/10 of the budget for just a single season. So again, until it gets its wings, I think and in that concept, shows that have a smaller starting point, they get a little bit luckier in that they can focus on like the small details more. But by the end of the series, it's like they've got to really ramp up production costs. So yeah,
Yes, well, and having a smaller budget in some ways, it really forces the makers of the show to be creative, to really make sure they have top notch story, to make sure that people keep watching the show because they can't just rely on the visuals. That said, the visuals look amazing. For what they are, like the sets look really good, the action looks really good. Of course, they're showing us the best stuff. It's the trailer, but I don't know. I was impressed. It looks like the monsters and the action scenes are going to be pretty dang good. The world looks really good, so they've definitely sucked me into at least watching a few episodes, and then if the show's good, of course, I'll watch the whole thing. James Fullerton says Witcher is looking much better. Yes, absolutely. Time Bean looks way better than the teaser, of course. Ali Mahfouz says, I loved how he sounds. Yeah, and of course he's going to have, his voice is much, 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 much different than the games. But it is, it's a different interpretation. It's a different thing. That's, I guess, one thing is that we're just going to have to accept that Geralt is a little different in this. Another thing that was pointed out is that the show is being told from the perspective of some of the female characters. I believe they said Triss and Yennefer, or was it Yennefer and Ciri? This was something that I had heard or read about, external to the trailer, but so Henry Cavill, Geralt is. The show is not being told from Geralt's perspective. Of course, he's obviously a key character, so there's not going to be any shortage of Geralt in the show. But that was interesting. So one YouTuber saying, "Oh, it's a bait and switch." I don't agree. I don't think that there's any. I don't think that's a bait and switch. I don't think there's anything in the trailer that says. I don't think it's saying one thing and is going to deliver another. So I don't.
yeah,
I don't agree with that perspective. But anyway, I just thought that was worth noting that that's going to be the. There's going to be heavy focus on. It was Yennefer and one of the other female characters. Overlord 580. New trailer is good. Time Being Eyes not as Twilight-like as in the trailer. Yeah, if anything starts sparkling, I am turning off the show. Let's see here. Sober667. Hey, don't recognize your username either. Welcome to the show. It's good. It gives me book vibes. That's good. And I mean, if you have read the books and if the show is giving you vibes about, if it really speaks to you as a fan of the books, that's a good sign. That's a really good sign. Let's see. Oh, I hate it when my chat window, when I get too close to the bottom of, scrolling down to the bottom, it like snaps down to the bottom and skips a whole bunch of messages. I hate it that it does that. Let's see here. Trying to look for the message because there was a... Ah, darn it. There was one I was just going to read, and I apologize. Because it was kind of a more negative comment that I wanted to get in there. So, anyway, so most of the reaction seems to be positive to all of this. Yeah, Tyler Lalonde says, I heard it will be focused on a female lead. That's what I've heard as well.
I think it's partially focused on a female lead.
Well, it's not. It's not going to be like exclusive. It's not going to be like the Yennefer show. It's going to be The Witcher, but
it's like they have to build on more than just that. And time being is fine to focus on a 10-year-old. Game of Thrones did that with Arya Stark, and that worked out. I'd say worked out pretty darn well.
Yeah. I can't comment. Haven't seen Game of Thrones. I don't know if you're making a joke or what there, but Tara K says, if Geralt is that young here, wouldn't Ciri be a little girl? Well, there is a blonde child in the trailer who I assumed was Ciri. I could be wrong about that. They didn't really say any of the characters' names. So anyway, I'm anticipating we're going to have a young Ciri in the show.
Yeah, but
isn't she the character?
The show is going to follow these characters for a while. I don't think we're going to have the end of the Ciri arc for her main portion of the story. I don't think the end of her arc is going to come out of I think it's going to I think obviously it's going to be like probably at least 3 to 4 seasons. I would say at least 3 to 4 seasons. If they were smart, they would have planned it for ending in around the 4th season. 4 seasons are pretty good for these types of shows. 7 gets a little bit long. 8 is way too long. Typically, you start pulling stuff out of your Magic Rabbit's backside at that point. It's there's a couple of shows. It's just atrocious level of stupidity after a certain point. It's like, yeah, okay, we get it. There's this, crazy stuff is going on. It's like, yeah, it's too much. So in this case, I think they're probably aiming for 4 to 5 seasons. And I think that should, at that point, kind of complete the story of Ciri. And then if it's really popular, then I think they'll go into a new branch of story. So, so that's kind of where I'm at now. They may end up throwing a monkey wrench into that. They may try to complete the Ciri story in simply 1 or 2 seasons, and then give the players something, or give the viewers something new to follow that is not necessarily tied to what they thought it was. So that's going to be very interesting too. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think there's some opportunity for growth here. I think the writer has been working on some new stuff. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. It could end up being really, 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 really well done. So we'll have to see about that.
Found the comment I was looking for earlier. Neon Heart says, that guy looks like a wimpy idiot as a Geralt. I've censored it a little bit, but yeah, that's fair enough. I think that some people aren't happy with the interpretation of Geralt that's happening here, and that's fair. Time Bean says the swordplay looks awesome. I agree. Time Bean also says his hotness makes it really hard to focus. Well, I guess we'll just have to watch every episode twice, 3 times. I don't know. Let's see.
If you think that's hot, then just wait until I do my face reveal, because I am nowhere close to that.
You'll be running back to Henry Cavill.
Yeah, you'll be running back to him at that point. So, anyways, jokes aside, I think overall, overall, I think I think it'll be kind of okay. Now, yes, I know some people are hardcore fans of the old thing, but it's like you got to let new stuff come in at some point, right? So, yeah, I mean, as long as they keep true, right, then they can do new stuff, and new stuff is fine. All right, so let's move on to Death Stranding, because there is a Death Stranding Rick and Morty video, guys. Death Stranding Rick and Morty.
Why am I only hearing about this now?
They break the fourth wall and everything. This just came out this morning. It's only 30 seconds long, so don't rush off. I probably should have saved this to the absolute end of the podcast, but it's only 30 seconds long. It's really, really funny. And yeah, it's bloody awesome. It's absolutely bloody awesome. And overall, really, really looking forward to watching as this game evolves, because the reviews coming out are good. The reviews are kind of coming out in the form of what some people have been saying all along. I don't really understand what's going on here, and it seems like it's super deep, but I'm starting to get it, and it seems to be really good. That's kind of where most of the reviews sit. Most people are giving this like a 9 out of 10. There's a couple of places that are giving it a really low number. And upon looking at the reviews and upon really looking at the situation, I can 100% definitively say that they're giving it a low review because the person playing the game is either stupid, or they're doing so to get more attention and get more clicks on their website because they're giving it a low score, and because they're one of the few people giving it a low score, and they're doing it for street cred, and they're doing it because because they want to be different. They want to be the special butterfly in the room. And frankly, those people are disgusting, and this is why gaming journalism as a whole needs to be completely overhauled. Because again, giving something a bad score because you don't understand it is not a valid point for giving it a bad score. If you don't understand it, and a lot of people are, that is a statement upon your intelligence. That is not a statement about the game. And it's absolutely disgusting that again and again and again, these absolute cretins get away with this garbage. And like, as you can tell, little upset by this. Am I upset because somebody hurt the Fifis? No, I'm upset because somebody is too stupid to put 2 and 2 together. And it's really disgusting, and it really gets old. It's so old at this point. Just stop it, please. This is why you're failing. This is why you're probably not going to have a job in a few years. It's absolutely disgusting behavior. I didn't really understand what was going on. Therefore, I'm deciding to give this a low score. It's as bad as when what's his name gives a game a bad score because it's an open world exploration game. It's like, I don't like open world exploration games. I was anticipating something more along the lines of an action story game. Then why did you review it? Like, God, it's so arrogant. Anyways, really kind of peeved about that. Again, am I primarily peeved because somebody hurt the Fifis? No, I'm upset because somebody's too stupid to know how their job is supposed to work. And that's about it as far as dealing with that kind of negativity that's going around. So On the positive side, the positive reviews are all again, most of them are saying the same thing. I don't really understand what's going on here, but it seems really deep and it seems really good. Yes, 100% agree. And I've been saying this for a really long time. He's trying to create, or he's trying to elaborate on a new genre that, or on a particular portion of the gaming genre that has been underserved. And it's by finding and connecting good players, not good players, good characters within the gameplay that you're having. That's a worthwhile endeavor. It's a worthwhile endeavor for you to make people love the characters, love the NPCs that you're dealing with. Now, yes, this has been done for a really long period of time, but I think that there's always been room for this to grow. And I think there's room or a pathway to make it even better down the road. And I think this is what he's doing, and I think he's doing it pretty darn good. Also, I found out something that I was not aware of until the reviews came out. Apparently, they break the fourth wall a lot. And that is brilliant. I love fourth wall breaks, and I am now really excited to get my hands on this game when it comes out on the PC. Hopefully, it doesn't come out on the PC on the Epic Store. But yeah, I'm really, 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 really happy to see this because some of these fourth wall breaks are really, really funny. There is, let me see if I can find a couple of these.
You're talking about like in cutscenes and stuff?
No,
Or
not
like
just
how
in
does it?
cutscenes, in a whole bunch of other places. So I'm trying to find the fourth wall. Okay, so fourth wall breaks. Sam, the main character, will acknowledge a camera from time to time, and sometimes he will point in the direction of where he wants to go. Or if you stare at his crotch for too long, or if you're staring at him for too long, he will turn around and wink at you. I love it. I love it. I love it. This is hilarious. This is a game that is serious, but it's not taking itself too seriously. This is the kind of humor that you need to break these tense moments and also keep the game flowing and feeling smart. You've got this really, really funny bit with Conan O'Brien playing a cosplay character, a cosplay obsessed character. Sorry, is a cosplay obsessed survivor who will give you an item, and it's a pretty short little scene, but they break it, and it is really, really, really funny. I'm like, kudos, good job. There are some of the bosses during boss fights that will refer to themselves as bosses, and a handful of other moments in video game tropes that they'll mock or deliberately point at. So yeah, I gotta say, so one of the articles that I've read, so I've read a couple of them, but I gotta say, so far, I think my favorite is probably The Verge. Mostly because they're fairly honest, and that's refreshing to have from The Verge, and other places. So yeah, this there's not much to spoil here because most people have tried to avoid spoilers, and I'm really going to try to avoid spoilers. There was some stuff mentioned about some of the more like intricate story points. I really don't think that's a good idea. Do not listen to in-depth reviews talking about plot. Don't do that. Do not do that. First of all, figure out if this game is something that you want to play. If it's something that you're going to play on the PC, because it is coming out for the PC, something that we called years ago. Years ago, I had a friend in Japan say they talked with Kojima, and he said didn't really want it to just be on the PlayStation. He made an agreement with Sony, but he was going to try and push them to get it to be PC. I can now say that because it is now true. So I love being right, and this one was something that again, we called this years ago, and I said, look, he really wants this to be more than just a PlayStation game, and lo and behold, we've got it here. So figure out if you're going to play this game first. And again, I'm not insulting PlayStation players. I am please understand, this was never my intention to accidentally innuendo to this. I didn't choose my words carefully enough. This game is not the standard PlayStation game. this does cater to more of a slower exploration slash kind of building relationships with NPCs. Now, the building relationships with NPCs is something that a lot of PlayStation players are used to, 100%. But the really slow, gradual movement, gradual progress of the game, this is not something that PlayStation players are used to. So, also one of the main reasons why he wanted this on more than one platform. This is a game that's very different from what most players play on the PlayStation. I'm not insulting PlayStation players. I'm just pointing out that there's a difference between um, the types of games that PlayStation players play versus the types of games that Switch players play, and the types of games that Xbox people play. And I'm talking about people who play these things primarily only. So if you're only a console gamer of one of those three consoles, um, your gameplay appetite is going to be a little bit different on average than another person who plays on a different console, or people who play on the PC. But then, what you would typically call, and again, I'm not trying to insult anybody, what you typically call a true gamer is somebody who has a PlayStation, an Xbox, a Switch, and a PC. In many cases, that's what a lot of people would generally refer to somebody as being a well experienced gamer, because they play, they can play on a keyboard with a mouse just as easily as they can pick up a handheld console, so like the Switch, in its Switch deep format, versus sitting down and playing with a controller looking at a big TV. It's like that's typically what we refer to when that. But again, I'm not lumping people into a thing and saying that some are better than others. I'm just pointing out that there is differences, and differences are great. Differences are fine. But in this particular case, it may not be received well by some PlayStation players because this isn't the type of game that they're used to. Doesn't mean it's not a good game. It doesn't mean that they're not gamers. It just means that it's a different experience than what they're typically used to. So please bear that in mind while you go into the game. And again, I'm not insulting PlayStation players. It got wonky on one of the previous podcasts when I said that this was not something that they were going to enjoy because it was a lot more heady. I didn't mean that you were stupid. I meant that it's a different type of game that caters to a different way that people enjoy exploration games, which is not something that is typically found in this particular console player playing group. So bear that in mind, because you will see some people being negative on it because they couldn't quite get it, or it wasn't just exactly something that they were interested in. And I suspect in a lot of these cases, because this is a good game, and judging at the reviews, I think this is a very good game, and I think this will one day be considered the first cuffs of a masterpiece in a particular series, in a particular genre type series, that people will point back at this as they pointed back at several games in the past and say, yeah, this was a defining moment in gaming. I think that a lot of those players who at first kind of give it a pass because it's kind of, it's not their type, it's not their particular style, and it's probably, in some cases it might be because they're fairly young. Years later, looking back on it, they'll come back and play the game and appreciate it a lot more. I really think that's what's going to happen here with the fan base here, with that particular aspect of the people who don't like it. I think it will grow on them down the road when they discover that they actually enjoy games that have a little bit more of a slower pace to it, and that they'll look back on it and go, this was the first kind of entrance into this particular genre of type of play, and it's gotten better since. But going back to play the old one, it's so much more, it's so interesting, it's so different, it's so cool, it's so whatever. And it's like, okay, that makes sense to them. But as far as now goes, I think this is a solid game, and that if you're into exploration games, if you're into games that have a narrative, if you've enjoyed his work before, I really think you're going to enjoy this one again. I really, really think that this is definitely a new and interesting game. We haven't had a chance to play it yet, obviously, but I think after looking at a lot of these reviews and going through a lot of these reviews, I think that this is that this is going. Like I said, I think this is a defining moment in a new type of genre, and I think this is totally okay. In fact, I think this is nothing but a good thing. It might be a little slow for some people. Um,
Some people
in
aren't
really,
gonna like it. That's just the bottom
yeah,
line.
yeah. Some
It's
people are
not
not
gonna
going
be
to
for
like it.
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, and they'll be expecting something else. But again, it's like Metal Gear Solid was not so much about like running from gunfight to gunfight to gunfight. It was a lot of thinking. It was a lot of strategy, and it was well. Um, what's the word? Again, I want to choose. It was well disguised as a fast paced game, and I I get this because I was talking to some some older gamers about like their memory of like early Metal Gear games, and it's like, oh, it was so fast paced, and you just flew from gunfight to gunfight to gunfight, and it's like that's their memory, editing out the the fact that they spent an hour and a half in a box moving from one side of the map to the other, right? That there was those moments, and that's what you have here. It's the same guy, it's the same stuff. It's just done in a slightly different way. And as far as like the movement and exploration goes, not the story and all this. The story is still good too. So yeah, I I think that this game is one of these defining moments, and that I think a lot of people will look back on this and look at it like that. So that's my opinion on it. Ash, what was yours?
Well, first I'd like to answer Simon 2 questions. Randall, do we have this game? No, we have not played it ourselves. We were not given review copies, unfortunately. Looking forward to the day when we do get these bigger games on in early access. They gave out review copies of this like 3 weeks ago to some of the larger YouTubers and such, and that's really good. You need that kind of time with the game. I was offered a review copy of The Outer Worlds like 8 hours before the game released. I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? Plus, it was for the Epic Store, so I was like, no, no, I'd rather spend the money. So anyway, my impression, and I agree with you that it's not going to be for everybody. I think that it's important when you're doing a review on a game like this to try and understand it for what it is, rather than comparing it to what you know, what you're already used to. This is a completely different thing. Some people look at it, think it's boring, and you know what? They're allowed to think it's boring. That's fine. If they don't like the game, okay. This is part of why I don't like giving scores on reviews, because I think they can be misleading. But the overwhelming majority of reviews seem to be positive, both on like review aggregator sites and the YouTube reviews I've watched. And I think I have watched both Yong's and did I watch? No, it wasn't Layman Gaming. It was Skill Up. I watched Skill Up's review, and I watched Young Yea's review, and I watched and read a couple other things. I think I'm finally starting to understand what this game is, and I'm not sure if I will enjoy it or not. But I agree with Saib that this is definitely something new, very innovative, and something that certain people are really, really going to enjoy. And some people will not enjoy. I'm sure there are a lot of people who are going to find it dull and boring. And there are some people who are going to enjoy it a lot. I don't know which of those categories I'm going to fall into. And like if I have time, of course I'm gonna check it out. But I don't know which of those categories I'm going to fall into. But this game is about the journey. That is what it is. It's being jokingly called a walking simulator, and that's not an accurate. I mean, it's accurate in one way, but it is. It's not like what we typically call a walking simulator. So don't get that impression. It is not just a kind of a storybook. Your character is a delivery person, and you have to strategize, getting cargo from one place to the other. You have to figure out how much you're going to carry, what you're going to bring with you, how you're going to arrange it all, plot your route, all of these kinds of things. So it is a strategy game in that way. And as you're walking, there's you have to sort of direct your character's steps. It's not just holding the forward button to move. There's different types of terrain. You have to be careful not to trip. You have to be careful to, how much cargo you've got on your back, it affects all of that. It affects how top heavy you are, that kind of a thing. Does that sound boring? Well, I think, again, it makes every step of your journey a challenge. That's what it's about. It's about, traversing the terrain and getting from place to place. And then, of course, there are the enemies that, these invisible enemies that you may come across, or there's harsh terrain and that you have to figure out, how am I going to get across this without dropping everything or damaging stuff, going for a spill. It's one of, and I, honestly, I mean, I feel like I have to try it for myself before I can really judge what it's going to be like. But like I said, the reviews that Young and SkillUp both said they really thoroughly enjoyed the experience. But again, they acknowledge that it's not going to be for everybody. So I wouldn't boil it. I think the risk is to boil it down to, it's just like a delivery boy simulator. Well, if you want to really, really oversimplify it, yes. But it's more involved than that. It's got a lot of very strategic elements, plus some combat. But the combat is not the primary focus of the game. But what really, the aspect of it that the reviews I watched spoke most positively about was the social strand simulator aspect of the game. This thing that Kojima's been talking about, that we haven't really understood what it is, but it's basically a form of asynchronous multiplayer where you place things in the world and those show up in other instances of other people's game worlds, basically. And so you can you can place ladders, you can build bridges, you can place things down, shelters, or supply caches. You can find these, and then you can leave things, you can leave similar things behind for other players. And basically, as a group, in a sort of asynchronous way, people have the ability to alter the terrain of the game. This is a really interesting thing, and this is the aspect of it that the reviews that I consumed spoke most positively of. That they really started to feel a connection to other players of the game, even though they didn't ever encounter them in like a typical multiplayer where you see the other player walking across. You don't ever encounter another player, but you encounter the evidence of them being there. And SkillUp at one point found a motorbike that Yang Ye had left behind. And he said, every time he got on that bike, he thought of Yang. And so it's an interesting concept. And I agree with Saib, Kojima really was trying to create something new here, and I think he succeeded. And it could very well be that this is just a new genre of game. It almost seems like it's ahead of its time. Here, right on the cusp of a changeover in the console generations, we're getting this, and like it almost seems like this is a next generation game that released too early. Not too early, but like it just seems like it's a little bit ahead of its time, because it's definitely different. It's definitely innovative. And so I'm fascinated by the whole concept. And if I don't end up playing it, I will definitely be checking out some streams of it, that kind of a thing. Actually, I probably will anyway, because it doesn't come out on PC until 2020. Tyler Lalonde asks, what is the genre? Actually, I'm not sure if you're talking about...
It is a new genre.
It's a very new genre. I wouldn't even know what to call it, but like, Kojima calls it a strand game, a social strand game. It's really hard to define, and I would suggest definitely checking out some of the more in depth reviews to try and get an understanding of what this game is. It's an action game, but it's a different kind of action game. It's its own thing. So yeah, I do agree that it's going to be a masterpiece in its own way, in the sense that something very unique has been accomplished here. And these are definitely things that, this is definitely something that could become its own really fleshed out genre. Plus, there are aspects of this that could definitely be brought into other games or other genres and sort of incorporated together with other genres of games. So, James Fullerton says a journey/transversal game. Yeah, I think that would work. Like, because again, it's whereas in a lot of games, what we're really used to is when you travel from point A to point B because the objective is at the end of your destination. Like, that's where the gameplay happens, and you're just kind of traveling in between. But, as anyone who's just gone off wandering in the wilderness in a game like Skyrim or The Witcher or The Outer Worlds, there's a lot of gameplay. There's a lot of enjoyment that can happen just from the wandering. Now, this is kind of wandering with purpose in Death Stranding, and it's really about, like, it's, again, there's the journey becomes, the actual walking part of it has been gamified, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it's really unique and really different, and it's affected by so many things. Like, you can load yourself up with cargo to try and kill two birds with one stone, but you're gonna have a much, much more difficult time crossing the terrain. And the game is beautiful, by the way, and there's like all sorts of different terrain types, and it adds different abilities and gameplay elements in increments. I saw one review that said, "Oh, there's no vehicles." Well, actually, there are. They clearly hadn't played very far into the game. Yeah, you do get vehicles later, but you can't just. Some types of terrain aren't going to be conducive to vehicles.
With that.
Yeah.
I've got to say that overall, I think that this game, and maybe this is one of the reasons why, like, I'm immediately like, I actually kind of really like the concept of this, is that I think I've told the story a few times before. It's like, I grew up in a time and in a place which most people did have. Most people in North America, most people in, like, the modernized world, quote unquote, never got to experience, and that was like, dad gearing up, much seriously, he looked, in my memory, it looks very similar to the game. It loads himself up with, like, giant backpack. I'm not talking about a small backpack. I'm talking about a backpack that could hold, like, most, like, teenagers in them if they were to, like, scrunch down and get into it. It's like a big backpack, and then, like, puts on giant snowshoes, and then grabs a bunch of, like, ski poles, so for snow moving, and then walks out a door, and we know that we're not going to see him again for, like, the next day, because he's going to be walking 8 to 12 hours to a location, through tremendously cold weather, get to a place, pack up, stay there, rest there, sleep there probably for a little bit, then trek back on this very dangerous trek just to bring food home. It's like that's what this game reminds me of, is like this early pioneering spirit, because there were times where I was growing up, especially when my dad was growing up, that, I mean, there were times where it's like, well, winter's here. hope we've got enough to last through the winter because we're not getting out of here. Period. Like, end of story. If you didn't have enough, food in the reserves, you were going to starve to death. That's just the nature. Like, again, some people are like, North America? Are you sure? That still happens in certain places in North America because it's still, that distant from, quote unquote civilization. It's like you just can't push that. There's still a lot of natural wild to this, and this is what this game is bringing in the sense of like the adventure and the wonder of like moving. And I think, again, obviously not for everybody. There's a reason why only, like, what was it, like 0.1% of a hundredth of a percent of people are pioneers, like, are willing to go. So you're headed to a place where you're most likely going to die horribly, but there's a chance that you'll be able to build something there. It's like the amount of people that raise their hands for that is extremely low, almost non-existent.
Right.
And yet they're the ones who, who built places where there's nothing was before. And in looking to the future, those are the types of people who are going to volunteer for, Mars and deep space exploration.
You need a small percentage of those people in order for some advancement to happen, but you can't have too many or else we'll all die.
Yeah.
Now, just to wrap this up, I do have a couple of messages on our Discord server that I want to get to.
Oh, sure.
But also there was a message about I can't see it now, but somebody commented that it's being overhyped because it's Kojima. I think there is some truth to that. I think that I don't think that the game doesn't have any merit on its own. I think it definitely does. But when I see it getting so many 100-point reviews, it's I have to wonder if there's some of that playing in it too. It's some of the Kojima hero worship happening. Could very well be. But again, that is not to say that the game doesn't stand on its own. But I do think Kojima's name definitely is probably contributing to that. But here are a couple of comments from our Discord server, and then we'll wrap up. Game Notes says, my thoughts on Death Stranding are the same now as when the teaser dropped. Hideo is on his own now, which gives him the freedom his fans and most gamers love to see. People need to fully understand and respect that games are not all ADD-inducing beige fests. I'm not sure if you made a typo there. I'm not sure what you were trying to say, actually. But a medium to combat or convey a message. I'm going to extract all of the visually, metaphoric, artistic value Kojima has to offer me. My only hope is I have fun doing it. How fun the gameplay is going to be seems to be the big hurdle, right? And yes, I think that's definitely a fair point. Like, it's a micromanaging backpacking simulator. That's one way that somebody in chat put it as well, and I think that's another fair description. Again, it's really it's impossible to reduce this game down to like a 3 to 4 word phrase describing what it is. If it looks, I would definitely, again, check out some more of the more in-depth reviews about it before making a final judgment about it. Somnolence says Death Stranding seems to have gameplay that won't be fun for everybody. In my opinion, games must have good gameplay, and otherwise you can just watch Let's Plays to see the story. And Death Stranding has a fixed protagonist and no choices and consequences, ? What is the point of Kojima using a game medium when he is actually creating something more akin to a movie? Well, yeah, if all that you're interested in is the story, this might not be the game for you.
No. I think he means gameplay. And no, I agree. I agree. So I think it's totally okay for some people to create and embrace a video game that is simply telling a story. I mean, Telltale did that all the time, and you just kind of had a choose your own adventure kind of story, and those are games. So I think so. I don't think the criticism there kind of lands, because I do think that this is obviously this is not a normal game, but this is a game, and this is a unique game. And as far as him working with or working to create what essentially is a movie, it's like, remember who he's working with. He's working with a bunch of actors and movie people, and he is telling a story. So yeah, that may not be what you want, and that's totally fine. Like, it's totally fine to not like the game, but to not call it, a game is like that. I think that's a little
because
on the incorrect side, because
it is a gamified. Like I said, even just
is,
the walking part is gamified. Whether or not you actually enjoy that gameplay
you may
is
not
a separate
enjoy it.
question.
And trust me, that is an absolutely valid reason to not enjoy the game. That is not a good reason as a game reviewer, if you were a game reviewer, to play the game to give it a negative mark because you didn't enjoy the aspect of what the game had. If it is a game that focuses on that, then you shouldn't be reviewing it if you find that kind of stuff disgusting. Yeah. It's like, I found racing games gross and boring and stupid. It's like, I should not be reviewing racing games. It's like, that just kind of goes hand in hand. And again, that's not an insult to you as the player. That is 100% your choice as the gamer. 100% of the choice of what games you enjoy are based on what you enjoy to play. And you don't have to be forced to enjoy any game that you shouldn't or don't want to enjoy because it happens to have a particular mechanic to it that you don't enjoy or you don't like. That, again, that's 100% normal. And that's why I gave the warning about like how this game is not what some people are expecting. They're expecting this new shooter with like that's totally focused on like, running around and gunning everything down that you can see every 5 seconds. Like that is not what this game is. And just to be aware of that this game is a good game because it is a story gamified movie experience in a lot of ways. That's really what it is. And again, that's totally fine. And I think that in the future, we're going to see more of these types of games that tell this story. And what was that one, the one horror game with Hayden Panettiere or whatever, that girl from Heroes? What was that one horror movie called? But it was that, like, that thing basically played out like a movie. And it had a couple of choices here and there, and it had some stuff that you could do. And again, it's like, some people said, I don't like that because it wasn't a true RPG. It's like, well, it probably was not an RPG until Dawn. Thank you, Until Dawn.
Until Dawn.
So you play an Until Dawn. Yeah, it's not a true like RPG in the sense of the term and the traditional viewpoints of an RPG, and it played more like a movie than it did play like a kind of more traditional video game. But I think those games are fine. It would be disturbing if everybody suddenly started doing them and everybody was hiring big movie star actors and actresses to star in these leading roles, and every game featured this. Obviously, there would be a problem with the entire industry if that was the case. But this is only, like, legitimately, I can't think of any other full 3D game that was basically like a movie that had a lot of movie experiences. I can't think of one. So just pointing out that yeah, I think this is fine because this is only one of a small handful in the past few years, and it's totally fine. And I see where they're going with it, and I think on his next iteration of this one, if he does a next iteration of this one, he will improve things. I think he will tweak stuff and make it better, or make it faster and make it more enjoyable, while he emphasizes other better areas to make them even better than they were before.
All right.
So improving the stuff that some people didn't like, and then making the rest of it, great. So overall, I think my vote is that this is a pretty darn good game.
And that music means that it's time to wrap up. So thank you so much, everybody, for the great conversation in the chat, for supporting this show by listening live or after the fact. Please slam that like button if you haven't already. We really appreciate that. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share the content around. All of that really helps. Leave comments if you're listening after the fact. Special thanks to our Patreon supporters and channel members who help make this content possible. our big damn heroes on Patreon, Old Man Manson, and our 2 anonymous supporters, and our channel members, Jason Cropper, Mr. Pazernick, Jer Schultz, Game Notes, Paul Young, and Night City Punk. If you're listening after the fact, we appreciate your likes and follows on those audio-only platforms as well, and don't forget you can join us Wednesday nights and Saturday mornings for the live show, where you can interact with us and other listeners. This is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Ash Shenanity on behalf of Subsidian. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll talk to you next week.